Good afternoon and welcome to the regular briefing session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We have a full agenda today. All commissioners are present and accounted for. And to begin today's meeting, I'll turn this briefing session over to our Vice Chairman, Don Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly want to welcome everyone to this is the May 12th briefing session for our regularly scheduled meeting on May the 19th next week. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to the county manager to go over the items, and I believe we're going to hear some budget update work afterwards. Correct?
We can.
Well, I thought you said you were. I thought I read that you were going to do something.
We actually, I had talked to y'all in kind of individually beforehand.
Oh, okay.
So
I got it.
But to that point, we are deeply in the budget process, and so this Thursday, next Thursday, we'll be trying to tweak through sort of what the final recommended budget looks like. So we'll be getting with you on that. And then all that sort of building up to May, I believe it's the 26th, is that Thursday? Is that right? May 26th will be the formal presentation of the budget. We'll come back that following Thursday with our detailed presentation, public hearing the following Monday, which I believe is the 6th, and then 7th, 8th, and 9th being deliberation. So we're in full budget mode, so that is absolutely accurate. All right. With that, I'll just dive in to the Vice Chairman's remarks. Really all we have is just finalizing this agenda for next Thursday's meeting. Don't have any closed session items, and I don't think we have any other discussion items unless there are things that the board wants to try to raise. So the first three items are planning and zoning items. Christian, why don't you come on up? The board has actually seen presentations of all three of these in previous sessions because these were carried over from that. Obviously, there was a lot of conversation about a potential for a condition in the approvals that would kind of get to the point that you don't want a homeowners association. To the extent possible, you would rather have those public utilities dedicated over the Utilities Commission. So there's been lots of conversations about that. Where we, I think, have landed with that, and Courtney Driver with Utility Commission is here, we've sort of landed at a place where the Utility Commission has some policy work to do around kind of involvement and expansion of the system. You've also, you want to move forward with approval or disapproval of this kind of in a timely manner. And so one of the suggestions that we came up with would be if the board were interested in approving it, but also sending the message that we really would like for the system to work both in the Utility Commission side and also with the applicant to try to make, to the extent possible, build it in a manner that the Utility Commission could eventually take that over. We've got actually kind of landed on a motion of encouragement. And so, Gordon, do you want to talk to what, some language, and again, this would be language in the motion. It would not be a condition in the actual approval. So.
Yes, as the manager stated, right now there is no policy in place for the acceptance of particularly the lift station infrastructure by the Utility Commission. And so this statement is looking forward, knowing that the Utility Commission will be working on such a policy. So it's possible, but that by the time these neighborhoods are built up, that they may be in a position to accept the infrastructure. So this is the proposed language that would go in each of the motions. Forsyth County strongly encourages the petitioners to confer with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities regarding the site's sewer and water infrastructure, and to construct this infrastructure in such a manner that would allow the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission to accept ownership of the infrastructure once completed.
Discussion? Should we have a discussion on that? No?
Well, so that is a potential sort of direction to go into. I guess my questions would be, if you want to, Chris can actually step through the presentation on all three of these, essentially the rezoning action that is before you, if we want to do that today.
And good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm certainly happy to do that if that's something that you desire. I think my recollection of the three cases, that most of it did center around the utilities discussion, but I can certainly go over each of the three cases if that's what you desire. And like I said, I know that Courtney Driver is here as well. If there are specific utility questions, I could try to field them as best to my ability as I could, but she's the expert. So,
I didn't even know we had no policy in that region, but if it's necessary, we probably ought to do it.
Yeah, so maybe if I could ask Courtney to come up and talk a little bit about sort of where the conversations that have occurred on the Utility Commission side of this, and maybe put it a little bit in context with where we've been, where we are, and where we're going.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Commission. So we do have design standards and specifications in place for lift stations that we would construct and be part of our system. What we do not have right now is a policy that determines when it's appropriate to accept a new lift station into our system. So we currently have 45 lift stations right now that are in our current sewer footprint that have been acquired over a number of years through mergers with the towns, when the city and the county merged, back in the 70s. So for a number of reasons, annexation projects. But right now, our philosophy has been, we will not assume any new lift station for just one single development. That's kind of been what our guiding principle has been. We're to the point now where there's no more area inside the current sewer footprint to develop, so we need to think about what are our opportunities outside that. It'd still be obviously in Forsyth County, which is part of our area, to serve, but it's just we need lift stations to be able to serve those
Would
particular
developers see this as a step forward where they're concerned?
Yes, I believe so. And we actually mentioned this at a developer forum that Chris's department hosts, and we asked for anyone that was interested to be a part of the task force as we develop this policy. What feedback or what would you like to see in this? So we want to work with the developers when we develop this policy.
So it seems like in an earlier discussion that we had about this, the conversation about, yes, you never took one development in, but you would take two developments. 'Cause
Correct.
I remember our county attorney asked the question, so if one of them had, 150, 250 homes and the other one had 6, then you had 2, so then you would consider taking them.
Yes.
And I think the question kind of became, well, to me, it really looks to me would have to do with numbers of homes, not numbers of developments, that in terms of making a decision. And if that were to happen, then I'm looking at protecting homeowners. How do we protect homeowners that they're not stuck with a huge assessment at some point later, typically 15 and 20 years later, that they say, well, gosh, I had no idea about this. And of course, in 15 or 20 years, the house may change ownership 4 or 5 times. There are all kind of issues that get into that. So we're just trying to be, I think a lot of these are coming forward now in the county, and it makes some sense to kind of be planning and preparing. And I guess the work that you all are talking about, I heard our county attorney mention in his that suggested language, that until such date as you all finish this. And how long is it going to take you all to think through that to do it? I mean, these things take long, things languish. It's not a pressing need. Day to day takes over, and here we are in 2 years, and we still don't have that. So,
Yes.
how do you think we are? I mean, what is the level of urgency on the commission, the utility commission's part, to begin to sort of address this issue about expansion and about anything that we ought to be doing to try to make this better to protect the people who buy homes.
Right. Those are all great points. And yes, there is a sense of urgency. And I think we knew this day was coming, that we were going to end up, our service area would end up continuing to grow. And so we're at a point where we hadn't really had to deal with it that much in the past. There's been enough improvements and development inside our current footprint that it's worked out that way. But yes, there is a sense of urgency. I did mention this at the Utility Commission meeting this past Monday. I also had a conversation, a separate meeting after that Utility Commission meeting with Tom Griffin, who is the Planning and Policy Chair for the chair of the Planning and Policy Committee, I'm sorry. And so we had a conversation with him about what steps we need to take to keep moving forward. Like I mentioned earlier, we mentioned it at the quarterly developer forum, that we are looking to create a policy and ask for anyone that was interested to serve on the task force. So we are taking those steps. We've also benchmarked what other utilities are doing. So we've contacted Greensboro and Raleigh and Durham to see what they're doing in these type of situations. So we've already got a lot of information to be able to put together some guidance for us to use. What we need to have is some orderly growth. What we don't want to happen is we don't have any guidance for us to say this makes sense to be a part of our system and this doesn't make sense. And we currently have 45 lift stations right now. And if we just opened it up for any new lift station, that would quickly become unmanageable for our staff. So we want to have some guidelines that we use to determine what makes sense and what doesn't. And of course, we'll work with the planning department to look at the areas that we want to serve by sewer. And of course, there's some areas that maybe we don't want to serve with sewer at this time.
Would it be
So-
too early if we scheduled action on this at the next board meeting? Or does that require a little more detailed information for us before we do it, from your perspective?
I think we're going to need a little bit more time. I'm hoping we'll have a policy in place within 6 months. Could be less than that, but I think we can get where we need to be within 6 months from now.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify, I believe that the intent for what the county manager mentioned earlier is to move forward on these particular zoning cases with the recommended condition that the county attorney read, while, that allows these to go ahead and through the process with, a broad but, kind of strong recommendation that the developer continues to work with the utility commission to find ways to make these public. So for the immediate need of the zoning cases, I think the intention would be to go ahead and move those forward at the next meeting. But as Courtney said, the utility commission will continue to work on refining the policies. The utility commission is also going to be undertaking, correct me if I'm wrong, a water and sewer infrastructure master plan. And we're going to be doing the new comp plan called Forward 2045. So I think all of those three things will kind of coalesce to help us come up with a game plan to look for sewer infrastructure outside of the Muddy Creek Basin. If you remember through Legacy and Legacy 2030, our key consideration was to try to keep development within the Muddy Creek Basin and intensify there, but all the easily developable property is in the process of going away. So now folks are looking outside the basin. So we need to be strategic on where we put future public infrastructure to serve that. So I think that's what the policy and the two plans will work together to do.
That provides clarity, but it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is when we do act on this at our next meeting, that what Gordon Watkins, our county attorney, has outlined should be included on any motion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Good, okay.
Question. Go
ahead,
ahead, Mr.
Richard.
Cap.
Mr. Linville, go ahead.
Gordon, what you read is a suggestion. Is it like a condition?
It's not really a condition, and that's why it's in the motion. It's It's more a statement of, well, it says strongly encourage. It's a direction we're trying to push the developers in. The problem is right now, we don't really have the Utility Commission's policy, and so that is going to be developed, but this is sort of an interim step to take until we do have such a policy.
Well, part of the, I guess there's several, it's a whole lot surrounding all of this, but one of the key parts of it is cost of what it costs some of the private stations to be built. And that differs with the kind of mechanism that the commission has. And until you can, I guess it can be decided on next week, but not going to fix the problem. Or situation, I wouldn't call it a problem, it's just a situation, but I just don't see it fixing it right now. I'm sorry, but I don't.
I think.
I'm not saying your suggestion is not good, but you've just told us it's not a condition, and so it's just just a suggestion, and that's fine. But I just
And I agree.
I don't want to be the one to seem to be causing people problems, because I have plenty myself, and I don't like to put any on anyone else. But where we're at right now, I don't see the matter being fixed. Just as an example, let's just suppose that these are approved. I just say supposed. And as a private stations, private infrastructure. My understanding, the flow is the same, but it's still some differences of how and I don't pretend to know what they all are, of how the commission's stations or what they do is different. But if these are approved and they go under private, then those 15 years or so that Vice Chairman talks about will come, and then as I can see it, unless the commission changes their policy, they're not likely to accept private infrastructure that is, as they see it, is not up to the same standard. And then therefore, where you are at that point is it's back to the homeowners association if upgrades have to be done. I think that's where everybody's at, is about the homeowners. But if I come up with a good idea, I'll let you know, but I just do not think that it'll be next week.
So I don't disagree with anything you've said. The issue is that right now, no matter how the developer builds the infrastructure, there's no guarantee that the Utility Commission will accept it.
That's right.
So no matter how they build it, there's no guarantee. And so having said that, the best thoughts that we had sitting around was to get, to strongly encourage the developer to sit down with the Utility Commission to see what direction they're going in, hopefully get some recommendations from them, and that would give us the best chance that it could be accepted if that's the direction they wanted to go in.
Well, I think the one thing that all of the board agrees on is the Vice Chair mentioned, is to try to have as much protection as can be for the dwellings that they will be owning, and 15 years down the road, unless somebody gets the paper out, documents and reads it, then they'll see what happened. And if they, at some point, if a station did go bad and have to be fixed, and the homeowners association has got to pay for it, you know, who knows what that cost is going to be? I don't have any idea, but the main thing is it's the likelihood that if it's private, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have private, but the homeowners need to know the potential of what they face as far as cost is concerned. And I don't know how to get to that right now.
I think that's a valid concern, and I can tell you, as right now we don't have a policy or guidance. I think that's going to change pretty soon. I feel fairly confident that I think the Utility Commission will support recommendations to a policy where we will eventually be taking ownership of these lift stations if they're built to our standards. Of course, I can't say that for sure because they're the governing board and they set the policies and they have to approve what's been recommended to them. But I do think that we can get to a place where we'll have something that will address a lot of your concerns. We just don't have that right now.
I think the other thing is timing. As we looked at this, you know, the developer ultimately, whoever develops that property is ultimately going to have to go to the Utility Commission and have conversations with them because there are requirements to accept the effluent into the public system. And so, you know, those conversations, it'd be great if those conversations would happen before rezoning, but that's rare. I mean, at this point, the gentleman, you know, the owners are interested in getting rezoning so it can be used for this purpose. There will be conversations that come down the pipeline here, figuratively and literally. Our hope is the Utility Commission gets the conversation started and the efforts of the developer kind of occur and sort of merge in at the same time, and we come up with, you know, in a real positive way, the issue is coming to them at the same time they've got a proposal in front of them, and so they can make policy as they go. And so anyway, that's one of the hopes, is that, you know, the board's action would be a guide to make that happen.
You know, I would say the credit today would go to you and to Courtney Driver for forewarning us. We've got a problem, we have a flaw, but it's not unfixable. And if we are aware of it today, I think we're obligated to ask you to fix this problem and proposal, present it to the commissioners so we can approve or disapprove. My guess is we'll probably approve it because we don't want to keep this type of system going unless we have to.
That is truly the spirit of where we think we are. So,
I do have one more question. I want to think operationally I'm going to use Mr. Linville's term, assume that these were approved, but go ahead and go forward. I'm trying to get at the billing side of this. I'm assuming that what will happen is that the homeowners association will pay fees for the gallons of sewage that's accepted into the system once you all agree to accept it. And are the rates for that the homeowners association will pay on a monthly basis the same as another subdivision that you actually have this? In other words, that if it breaks down and repairs, you repair it. Are the fees the same?
So I believe for this subdivision, the water is going to be public, and the gravity sewer right now is, at this time, is considered private with the private lift station. Those customers would be billed both water and sewer based on their water consumption, because they are, the sewage is coming back to our system through the collection system at some point. They're just like a customer, and it's treated at our plant. They would have the additional responsibility through their HOA to maintain that lift station and the private gravity sewer within that development.
So I think I am understanding this. So if we have a subdivision over here where basically the lift station is under your guidance, under your control, and it breaks, that family's paying the same amount of money as the family over here in the new, with the private lift station that has all the liability for taking care of it.
Correct.
So they're treated the same from a building standpoint.
Correct.
I have just a question. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I think it's no different than if it was like, say, one standalone building that had to have their own private lift station just to serve their building, or if it's actually a single-family house that has to have a sump pump in their basement that they have to maintain to get pump the sewer back up to the street. Those customers would be billed the same sewer rate as any customers. We have some customers that go gravity all the way to the plant, and then we have some customers that go through, multiple lift stations, and they don't have different rates. So if you're a customer of ours and connected to our system, you have the same sewer rate, and it's dependent on your water consumption.
Let me, if I may, this is more of an operational question. You said you had 47 lift stations that you are monitoring?
45 right now that we.
45? How many people do you need to monitor 45 lift stations?
We have our staff, our lift station staff, I think there's one supervisor and 3 or 4 technicians right now.
And are they required to go out and physically inspect them, or is there some device like you got with water now where you can do it in-house?
Yes, so both. We do visually inspect those once a week, but we also have SCADA controls at all of our lift stations so we can remotely monitor them as well.
There's maintenance on, they're pretty intense.
They're maintenance intensive. I mean, you can imagine the pumps get clogged, there's electrical out there, there's a number of issues that we experience. Electricity goes out, the pumps aren't working, we can have an overflow. I mean, they are much more maintenance intensive than a gravity sewer line.
And when they go bad, 3 people isn't gonna fix it. You're gonna throw every resource you got at it. So it's.
And the larger the station, I guess, like Tanglewood, for example, is one of our larger stations, and something happens there, it's a major ordeal. We have to set up bypass pumps. We only have a certain time period to make any kind of repair because the flow's coming into that station, and it's pretty significant to fix.
When they overflow, it's a bad feeling. Trust
Yeah,
me.
but that's a big
It's
operation.
one of our larger ones.
Yeah. Do you have some that are really small?
We do. They range. We have some small ones, and then we have bigger ones. So they range in size.
And you electronically monitor all of them?
Yes, sir.
So there's
How many would you
certainly
have?
no incentive for the utility commission to take over a private lift station because you're not getting any more revenue and assuming a huge amount of liability.
I don't disagree with that statement, but back to your point about what's right for the community, and I think that's where we need to get to. So our mission is to provide water and sewer and solid waste disposal to this community. And so that would be our mission, and we need to try to do that in the best way possible.
And I appreciate your comments about essentially it's like all owners share the operation regardless what their needs are in some kind of capacity. And I do understand that part. But I think getting a policy that addresses this would really be great.
Yes.
And it helps everybody, it's clear to everybody, this is the way the world works. And this is what it would take for you all, the county, the city county utilities to take that over.
Agreed, yes.
So how many lift stations do you not monitor that are here in the county?
We pulled the number, I think there's 25 private lift stations that we've found, if I'm not mistaken. We've done a lot of this research since this has been a topic of discussion. But I think there's 25 in the county right now that are private.
You said you found them. Did they not apply for a permit to begin with?
Well, no, that we know of. So yes, they would have to apply for a permit for us to collect the waste. There's other utilities, there's some private utilities like Aqua, private lift stations that an HOA would maintain, but those are the ones that.
But you would know about any lift station in the county?
Yes, if it was connected to our system, then yes, we would.
So is the 25 connected to your system?
Yes.
Okay,
believe so,
because
yes.
there are lift stations that are there that are serving package plants and some other systems.
Correct.
All of which are regulated by the state, and
Correct.
so we know how many are regulated by the state as well. So.
Correct. And let me just verify that those 25 are all connected to our system. I believe so, but I need to just double check that because.
While you're at this, another complaint I got was that all the counties around us allow plastic pipe, and you do not for the hookup. Is that for some reason that they don't know about?
So there has been the discussion as far as plastic pipe, and we require ductile for water, and BCP clay pipe for sewer. There's a number of reasons why we do. We're not the only utility in the state that has that requirement. Ductile has a long lifespan. It's been tested. It's been tried and true. We know it's a good product. We also try to standardize so we don't have to keep multiple pipe material in our warehouse. We don't have to stock, 3 different or 2 different types of pipe. Ductile also is less vulnerable to break. I mean, when you install it, plastic requires different bedding requirements. There's pressure, ductile has a higher rating pressure, and we have obviously high pressures within the system. There's a number of reasons why we choose to keep ductile versus plastic, but yes.
So Guilford is not doing the right thing.
I would say that they have determined that maybe they can allow plastic, and that's okay for their system, but here, from our research and what our needs are, ductile is best for our water system.
Additional comments or questions?
One question, Mr. Chairman. Courtney, in your history with the Utilities Commission, has there been a case where you had to take over a lift station because of problems done by a private entity?
Not in my tenure in this position. I'm not going to say that it has never happened, but I can't recall off the top of my head that we've had to do that. I do know there's some neighborhoods that had private water and sewer, and just recently a neighborhood decided to relay all of their water lines to our standards so that we would take them over. And that just happened recently. But I can't recall of a time that we actually took over a lift station that I can think of.
So the 45 you have a footprint on, they were always controlled by the Utilities Commission, none of them were ever private. Okay, thank you.
You did a good job today.
So thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I presume you are okay with Chris not going through his kind of presentation. You'll hear next Thursday as we open the public hearing. Anybody dying to hear Chris talk through that again? Okay, all right. Sorry, Chris. I know you were looking forward to that. All right. Okay, we have 4 special resolutions, and they will be obviously accompanied with a presentation next Thursday. You've got a resolution recognizing May 2022 as Foster Care Awareness Month in Forsyth County. You've got a resolution recognizing May 15th through 21st as National EMS Week in Forsyth County. Item 6 is a resolution affirming and committing to the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Forsyth County. We actually had talked through this about a year ago, and it took so long to talk through it, we missed Pride Month, and so we did not bring that forward, but we are bringing that in advance of Pride Month this year. And then item 7, a resolution recognizing June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth National Independence Day in Forsyth County. So any questions or comments on any of those? All right, very good. You got the minutes from the meeting of May 6th, and those will accompany
I plan to get them out tomorrow.
tomorrow. All right, so you'll be seeing those. All right, you got a couple of budget and finance matters. Kimberly Busey from Budget Management will come up, and she will introduce a resolution approving a revision to the 2021-2022 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. She's also going to talk about the work they've done for the 22-23 plan. So I'll turn it over to Kimberly.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let's see if I can get this to work for you all.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah, Chantel will get you squared away there. So, or not. There we go.
So good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Kimberly Bussey. I'm here to present this item that will approve a resolution, or excuse me, a revision to the FY21-22 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. During the April meeting, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council approved a transfer request of funds from 2 organizations, the Children's Center of Northwest North Carolina and the YWCA, the Work and Earn It program. Due to underutilization of these organizations, they reverted these funds back to the Forsyth County JCPC for use and uses in other areas. And on your screen here, you'll kind of see how these funds were reallocated. So they reallocated, or rather reverted these funds in the amount of $11,755 from the Children's Center and $4,000 from the YWCA. And the JCPC approved the reallocation of those funds for the following uses: $6,000 back to the Children's Center for use with care licensing, $4,640 to the Authoring Action for their Just Us program, $1,115 to Triad Restorative Justice for their Restart or Impact Circles program, and $4,000 to the Parenting Path for personnel costs. So for all of those reallocation of funding, you can see this attached funding plan revision that is required due to these funding adjustments. And this approved, hopefully revised funding plan will be submitted back to the North Carolina Department of Public Safety for implementation for the remainder of fiscal year 22. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
I have one curiosity question. When you actually had the reversion, the turning back of the dollars, 11,000 plus, did every existing agency have an opportunity sort of to make a request back for something? I'm just kind of curious because I was a little surprised that one of the agencies that gave the money actually ended up getting 6,000 of it back.
So I think that they did, and the Department of Public Safety consultant that works with the JCPC sent an email to all of the existing programs to ask if anyone could use this reversion of funds, this money. So it was offered to all the programs, is my understanding.
Okay.
And then the component that goes back to the Children's Center, that's a bit like a budget revision. We just kind of showed it here to show where the money was going within the
This has to
organization.
be spent by,
The end of the fiscal year, June 30th.
and this is the state fiscal year.
It's our fiscal year. So,
Right, so that's what I meant.
yeah, right,
Yes.
correct.
All right, you want to go ahead and do next year's plan?
Sure. You should have this, but this agenda item is to approve the FY22-23 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. So also during the April 2nd JCPC meeting, the council approved recommendations from the Allocations Committee for the FY23 plan. Allocations are shown, you can see them on the screen, and your approval of this FY23 funding plan would allow for the submission to the North Carolina Department of Public Safety for implementation of the plan throughout the fiscal year. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And the one question I have about that is, because at different times, we've had a lot of discussion about evaluation of these plans, real measurable, what have they accomplished? Because a lot of these, I'm assuming, if not all, probably all of them are repeat applicants, or repeat
I think
funders.
all, yeah, correct.
And so I'm kind of curious, and I don't want to waste time today, but is there some kind of evaluation sort of document for each one of these that shows what they accomplished with the dollars they received last year? I mean, what have they done?
There's certainly a document that we have that has gone through the allocations committee and a lot of discussion and a lot of time on that very topic, and I'd be happy to provide you with what was discussed in the allocation committee meetings. But yes, I think Chantal may have
That
some
on a
additional.
document?
Yes, so I'll interject here. So they do, the state keeps, they call it like measurable objectives for every single program. And so for the dollar amounts, you know what they have successfully completed, how many people went through the program, if they met their measurable outcomes, that's determined by DPS. We have had a lot of passionate conversations amongst our committee as well as with the providers. We actually reduced funding for several providers because of their outcome measures. And so we are been working very deliberately to ensure we are receiving the services for the amount of funding that is being allocated. And I'll let Commissioner Elamine, because he's on that committee as well, for both monitoring and allocations.
Well, thank you very much. I was about to make just 2 30-second comments. The monitoring team actually goes on site, Commissioner Martin, and sees exactly what's taking place. We have measuring instruments that we fill out, and we'll assess the success of the program on site and return that report in back to the state, of course. So it's an ongoing process of monitoring. And if there's any questions raised, there's a question of them not being funded again. So we have to prove that indeed they're doing what they say they're going to be doing. And I've been on that committee for some time now. It's a very good exercise to see how tax dollars have been spent.
Would it be too much trouble in the final approval for next week that we had what the allocations they received last year versus the new allocations? So we kind of take a look at this, at the changes.
I can have that for you, certainly.
Thank you.
And I have a broader question. It's not for you, Kim. Thanks for the report. I appreciate you. This is for Dudley and Chantel. So we are putting lots of emphasis on JCPC, Cure Violence, our sheriff's team, and special appropriations around juveniles. And we're continuously seeing an uptick in gang and gun violence here in Forsyth County. This is probably a conversation for another time, but I just need to know how these groups are working collaboratively together, again, to find if we are having the measurable outcomes that we need to see. So that's just something I need you guys to be thinking through. And before we approve anything moving forward, I would like to see that. So thank you.
I just want to make one piggyback comment on Commissioner McDaniels. I actually got a call yesterday from one of our local citizens that said, do we need to have some kind of, crime summit, some kind of, I think the mall shooting got everybody's attention. Local doctor held up in a parking lot of a grocery store, broad daylight issue. I mean, there have been a couple things in the news, and it's just like, I think everybody wants something to happen. And in that conversation, I did talk about our looking at programs like Cure Violence, about the JIT team, and I mentioned the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council work. I just mentioned those things, but I think there's a lot of, obviously the statistics speak for themselves and a lot of concern, and I don't know if there's more we can do or need to be thinking about, but it's a topic for another day.
Just 1 30-second comment, then I'll be quiet. I invite any of my colleagues to come with me on the monitoring team and see exactly what takes place with these programs. I think you have another perspective once you see what's going on.
Well, I'm not suggesting there's any problem. I'm just suggesting our community we have crime is growing. I mean, it continues to grow, and whatever success we're having doesn't seem to be enough. And I think that's what general citizen frustrations are. I'm not just casting any disparaging comments. I haven't been there, haven't seen it on any of those. Are we doing enough? I guess that gets at it. Or do we need to be doing different things?
Right. The only other thing I would add is that for JCPC, their funds, a lot of it is for just basic things that the Department of Public Safety requires. So like psychological assessments, sheltering for individuals that's DJJ involved, restitution for those that's DJJ involved. So there's actually very limited funds when it comes down to real programming. We have some, but it is limited because there's some very just kind of core things that we are required to provide, teen court and some other things. So we certainly at some point can kind of give a presentation on like what JCPC funds and why, kind of what's extra from some of the basics. And then we, of course, are in the process of trying to implement Cure Violence. The RFPs for that, we're hoping will go out next week or the week after so we can start some traction on that. But besides the limited JCPC funds, we really don't have a lot of other programming for youth on the county side. So just
That's a great
Yeah,
observation.
there you go.
Appreciate that.
And that's what I'm alluding to. Not saying anything negative about what we're doing. Again, do we need to increase capacity? I mean, what does that look like with the dollars that I'm seeing in terms of our budget? So thank you.
Maybe just an observation, in the Reopen Forsyth work group that had met, there was a lot of conversation about, the fact that when we shut down schools and we shut down all the group programs, all the youth activities, because of COVID, we shut all that down for an extended period of time. And it's my belief that what we're seeing is what happens when you take those opportunities away from kids and even try to continue some of them virtually. And it's going to take some time to dig up out of that. But, if the Girl Scouts aren't meeting, the Boy Scouts aren't meeting, the YMCA doesn't have the kids there, if they're not doing programming, we're sort of where you almost could have expected us to be. And
Good point.
so
That is a good point.
So hopefully getting back to some normalcy will have some impact to it. But clearly, you have, as a board, y'all have started lots of programs in response to it, and I think they will pay dividends. But
So with that, have we reached the end of the briefing today?
no, sir, we're actually going to talk. You're going to hear from Randy Hunsucker, who wants to speed up the JIT team program, and so he is going to come talk about a resolution approving a revised start date beginning May 20th, 2022 for 9 positions created by Forsyth County Sheriff's Office and the County Commissioners by approving it in the Juvenile Intervention and Investigation Team.
Just
Randy,
for a matter of information, what's a JIT?
you're getting ready to hear.
Juvenile Intervention and Investigative Team. And so when this board approved that on March 3rd, we had tentatively picked July 1st to be the start date of this 30-month project, and we are ready to begin as soon as possible. In fact, if you vote yes next week, we begin making purchases of used vehicles on May 20th. That'd be the first step, and the positions would be filled May 28th. And so the resolution before you would allow us to begin May 20th. That's pretty much it.
Questions?
All right, thank you, Randy. All right, we have a couple of contracts. Item 12 is an ordinance amending fuel surcharge rate, the fuel surcharge rate chart, and specifying rates for franchise residential and small business solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services. Minor Barnett.
So good afternoon. When we started utilizing or applying a fuel surcharge in 2008, diesel fuel thank you. Diesel fuel had been rising from about $2.50 a gallon in January 2007 and surpassed $4 a gallon in 2008. The cost of diesel fuel has a direct impact on hauling services and transportation services, including solid waste collection. So when we adopted the fuel surcharge, we only included a price range on this chart from $1.50 a gallon to $5 a gallon. Well, for the last 8 or 9 weeks in a row, diesel fuel has been over $5 a gallon since at least March 14th. So the only change that we are proposing today is to expand the range of the chart to include diesel pricing exceeding $5 a gallon because it appears to be
in that higher range now and potentially could rise even more depending on what happens in the future. So we're not changing the methodology, or not changing the formula. We're just expanding the range of diesel fuel prices that can be addressed using the fuel surcharge.
I really hope your scale's too
Yeah,
pessimistic, I
do too.
guess.
I was looking at $7.75.
Well, I didn't want to have to come back again if things get even worse.
You don't want to come back next month.
Right. But this is based on a 90-day averaging period for this southeast region, as reported by the North Carolina Department, the United States Department of Energy. And we just track these prices and review them every 90 days.
Thank you, Minor.
Thank you.
All right. Agenda item 13 is a resolution rejecting bid proposals for employee wellness services, biometrics, coaching, and on-site clinic. You got a resolution authorizing an extension with the current provider, Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, for employee wellness services just for a one-year period. And that is, so I'll turn it over to Shannon Hutchins to review.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the county entered into an agreement with Wake Forest University Baptist on April 1st, 2019 to provide county employee wellness services. And the agreement expires on June 30th of this year. So the county did issue a request for proposals through the city-county purchasing department. I will say that when we started the RFP review and started the process to put that RFP out, we were, HR was not as heavily involved in the HCM side of the ERP implementation. So due to the timing of the RFP process and ongoing constraints from the HCM project, there is not sufficient time to thoroughly review the proposals that were submitted, to select a vendor and implement a new agreement before the expiration of the existing agreement. So in an effort to maintain a high level of service to employees without disruption, I recommend that we reject all bid proposals and execute a one-year agreement with Wake Forest University Baptist to continue providing employee wellness services through June 30th, 2023, and also issuing a revised request for proposals at the end of this year in December 2022 to allow adequate time and resources to properly engage in that process. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, there is an obvious question. And
Yes,
the
sir.
obvious question is, if we knew it was going to take all this amount of time, why did we request proposals when we did?
Yes, sir. You know, at the time we started reviewing the RFP, making changes, working with city-county purchasing department on that, we were not near as heavily involved. We were involved, but we were not as heavily involved in the HCM side of things. Right now, we're having multiple meetings daily and coupled with some on-site from our vendor for the HCM implementation. It's just very time-consuming.
And I can understand that. And I hope that did you have a lot of bidders for this?
We had 9. We had 9 bidders. Because of when these came in and everything that was going on at that time, we intentionally did not open and look at any of those. But we did receive 9 proposals.
I think it'd be great to let them know the overload that actually is created now that it is your turn to do all this work in human resources on this computer upgrade, which hadn't happened in the last, 15 years or 20 years or longer?
Ever.
30.
Ever. Ever. So that when I just read that agenda item, I thought, man, if I bid on this, I think, and it got rejected because you didn't have enough time, why'd you do it? And I wasted my time, and they must have something on the inside here about that. And I think they need to know that that's why there was not time, because it was unknown what was going to be required to turn everything upside down in human resources to try to get things transitioned.
Absolutely, we will. The plan is to send a letter through the city-county purchasing department for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Agenda item 14 is a resolution awarding a contract for the purchase of law enforcement stab-proof vests for law enforcement detention center staff using a North Carolina State purchasing contract. And Major Whitaker, I believe, is going to review this. Come on up.
Good afternoon. Today, I'm here to brief on a resolution to award a contract for purchase of 145 stab-proof vests from Lawman Safety Supply in the amount of $88,354. These vests are a critical piece of equipment needed by detention officers. The residents within the detention center are creative in making shanks or makeshift knives. It's impossible to completely eliminate the inmate manufactured weapons, but the vest will assist in keeping the staff there safe. This resolution award a contract purchase of 145 staff-proof vests to the staff in the amount of $88,000 from Lawman's distribution. The 21-22 fiscal year budget contains sufficient funds to purchase this, so therefore no additional funds will be requested. But this is an example of a property box. And they use pencils, paper clips. I mean, there's a lot of broom handles. So to keep the staff safe, we're probably one of the only counties that I've visited that does not have detention staff wearing stab-proof vests. So, y'all have any questions for me?
Only question I have is that I just did the arithmetic. You're actually buying, it looks like they're $609 a piece. You're buying 145. And I'm just kind of curious whether there are other vendors. I mean, I appreciate the state price contract. I just know when sometimes you have a large purchase, which I kind of think that's pretty large, that you might find another. Sometimes if you bid it yourself, even that vendor, Body Armor, might bid less if they knew there was some competition. Because the state, my memory, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the state price contract sometimes is a whole year long, price, and it's not bid on on a yearly basis, which sometimes you can buy things cheaper from the same vendor if you actually bid it specially. That's only, and that may be only peanuts, but I'm just kind of curious. That's a pretty expensive vest.
Well, I reached out and had actual in-person meeting with Lawman because my concern was the weight and them wearing it for 12 hours. So we did get an individual quote from them separate of the, and then I actually put one on and they weigh about 6 pounds. So it's not real, plus what I wanted to stab it. We stabbed with ice picks and it wouldn't go through it. So we did a little more research. As far as the state contractor, you're speaking a little more than what I'm aware of. So Randy's here if y'all have any questions about the contract part of it.
All right, got it. Thank you.
All right.
So how are they different from the flat material?
The flat jacket, you're talking about like the ballistic vest?
Kind of what we had in the military.
Yeah, you have the ballistic panels in it. This is just a, again, I guess it's where it takes the projectile and spreads out so it won't go through it. Kind of like, the ballistic vest, if you shoot it with an assault rifle, it's going to go through it because of the points. For us,
Hard shell?
it's kind of, I guess, the best way to put it, it's kind of like a gel. I mean, it's soft but hard, so when you stab it, it kind of absorbs it, so it doesn't let it go through the clothing. Yeah. Because like I said, they stabbed it. I had some of the captains stab it with actually ice picks, and it just made just a dot in it. So for the safety of the current staff, this is just enough to get my current staff. And then as they come in, we'll have to look at the option of issuing the new ones to those that get hired.
It's a lesson.
Yes, it's interesting. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you for what you do, Major Whitaker, and your folks. You got 3 interlocal agreements. Damon's going to handle the first 2. Item 15 is a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem for the consolidation of county-city fire dispatch services. And then while you're just kind of go straight through it, the second item is an interlocal agreement with City of Winston to lease and renovate space in Forsyth County Public Center Safety Building for the city's emergency dispatch primary public safety answering point.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. This item for your consideration is a resolution that would approve the consolidation of city and county fire dispatch under the county's public safety answering point. For an example of volume, in calendar 2019, or pre-COVID, the county 911 dispatched approximately 61,000 calls, of which 56,000 were emergency medical service or rescue calls from like accidents, while the remaining 5,000 calls were fire calls of all types. Although not as stark a contrast at the city, during that same year in 2019, they dispatched approximately 28,000 calls, and over 20,000 of those calls were in support of county emergency medical services or first response, fire trucks running first response. And then the rest of those were, the remaining 8,000 were fire calls of all types, with half of those being fire alarms, some of them mostly false alarms. So by consolidating city and county fire dispatch, what results is a more seamless EMS dispatch and a quicker response. So first response is automatic without any delay. So a fire truck would be sent to an emergency medical call immediately without having to go to the city to ask to have them sent. The need is eliminated for the city to verify addresses for their CAD, like the county has verified at that same address in their computer-aided dispatch as well. So you save time there as well. And then by consolidating city and county fire dispatch under one discipline, we'll know when mutual response is coming from the city. And so the need for additional resources or not would be established quicker. So all those things shave time off of dispatches for fire emergencies. County 911, additionally, was another reason that the city wants to join, uses a nationally certified fire dispatch protocol from APCO, which is the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials. So as a result, the city does not use a certified dispatch protocol, and it's more law enforcement oriented than is the county's dispatch, because most of their calls are law enforcement relative to fire or EMS dispatch. So City Fire currently isn't an accredited fire department, and part of that is having a nationally certified dispatch protocol, among other core competencies, but that's one thing that's important toward getting an accredited fire department. Lastly, there's the tax equity question. And so EMS dispatch is supported by all county residents, and they all get the same EMS dispatch service. With respect to fire service, city residents in the county pay a portion of the county's EMS and fire dispatch, but they don't get the fire dispatch part. And then they also pay for city fire dispatch, where they actually do get fire dispatch. So by taking this action, the same way that every county resident pays for EMS dispatch, they'll all pay for fire dispatch and get the same service and only be paying one time to the county to do that. The city, as you'll see in the item, will reimburse the county for 100% of the salary and benefit costs for those positions that we take on, which will be an additional call taker and an additional dispatcher. And then it will go down 20% until in year 5, the county is covering the cost for dispatch for fire like we are EMS today. And so with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Good deal. All right, go ahead and go through the second item then.
Okay. The second item is actually a lease arrangement. So it's an interlocal agreement with the city of Winston-Salem for 4,095 square feet of lease space in our public safety building. So 3,562 square feet of that will be dedicated to city police dispatch. And then the remaining 533 square feet is for non-exclusive common areas, halls, break rooms, bathrooms, restroom facilities, et cetera. The resulting cost per square foot, including common areas, is $7.27, with an annual increase based on the prior year's CPI. The city will be responsible for their own upfit of the space as a 911 dispatch center that will then relocate from their current location at police headquarters at 725 North Cherry Street to our building. The lease space will be adjacent to the county's fire dispatch and the sheriff's support dispatch. So you have all the dispatch centers next to each other. So one day in the long or near term, there may be a consolidation, and this would facilitate that happening. The lease is slated to begin on July 1st of 2022. And so although this item is not a consolidation, it's a co-location that will, we hope, facilitate a consolidation eventually. The city considered and passed this item at their April 18th council meeting as part of their consent agenda. And I'm glad to take any questions on this item if you have any.
Item 1.
All right, very, very good. A lot of work over a lot of years. Thanks, Jamie. All right, agenda item 17 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and Forsyth Technical Community College for maintenance and operation of county-owned property located at 4915 Lansing Drive. Chelsea.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is to authorize an agreement with the county and the college for maintenance and operation of facilities at the Carver School Road campus, and those facilities consist of the Carver School Road Branch Library and then the Maisie S. Woodruff Center. At the July 22nd, 1996 meeting, the board approved to execute an agreement with the college to construct this campus and these facilities, with each group owning their own property and facility. However, a single heating system connects and services both facilities. The grounds and parking lot also service both facilities. So what this agreement would do is just really clearly define the maintenance roles at that campus and who maintains the library, which would be the county, and who maintains the center, which would be the college, with the exception of grounds and parking lot services would be maintained by the college, as well as the shared building system. And that's really just because the controls for that system are located in the college's facility. And the intent of this is to kind of just provide services to the Carver School Road Branch Library that are consistent with the other branch libraries, mainly security services. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Doesn't seem to want.
So I was at the aviation campus. Closing up like 4 o'clock. And Forsyth Tech had apparently it's there all the time. We don't have anything like that at Mason. Does Forsyth Tech have an officer there during the day?
I don't know. They have their own police force, and that's a little bit different than the contracted security, and so they can only patrol their property.
Would that be considered their property, though?
Not technically.
They have.
Well, the part that they have, yes, but they couldn't go to the library.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chelsea. All right, agenda item 18 is a resolution exercising an option to purchase real property located at 4057 Assembly Drive from WPDA Incorporated. Kirby Robinson.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. As background on this item, in October of 2017, the board authorized a lease with option to purchase for 2 warehouse facilities located within Whitaker Park. Of course, the current owner of those facilities is WPDA Inc. The total value of that agreement was $1,650,000. The board authorized an upfront payment at that time of $1,474,000. So we have not paid rent since that time because of that one upfront payment. If the board desires to complete the purchase of the property, county will need to exercise its option prior to September 13th of 2022 and pay the remaining $176,000 to WPDA Inc. This is an aerial view of Whitaker Park, and I pulled this off of a real estate listing that WPDA has, so it's got a lot of information on there that's not pertinent to our conversation. But the county's facilities that we lease are 60510 and 605-7, which are here within the park, just to kind of orient you there. And here's another aerial. You can see our property line in red. The smaller facility is 605-7, the larger is 605-10. The total property is 3 acres in size. The 2 facilities total over 26,000 square feet. They're a mix of conditioned warehouse space and office environment, and they are well suited for sort of what they look like they'd be well suited for, which is manufacturing, light industrial, and storage purposes. There's a couple of pictures of the facilities. This is 60510, which is the larger, more warehouse-oriented facility. You can see it's got loading dock space here. This is sort of conditioned warehouse space with the office environment there, and then office environment in 605-7 here. So obviously in good shape. Our current lease arrangement with WPDA is a triple net lease, which means that we pay all operating expenses of the facility and actually all capital expenses as well. The condition of both facilities is good, but several capital repairs will be needed to be made in the future. That would be a roof repair replacement, HVAC replacement, and drainage improvements. The issue that's in front of us right now is that to fully separate the facilities from adjoining properties. So, when Reynolds had this, everything was sort of interwoven together, the utilities were. So in other words, to separate the facility from that structure, we do need to put an electrical meter out there and new water supply lines. The estimated cost for that work is $102,000, $138,000. The reason for that range would be a potential upsizing of the water line. It's a little small right now. And I understand the negotiations are ongoing with the current owner related to those costs. Here's just a quick basic floor plan of the facilities to your left. You'll see that 605-7 connects to 605-10. And in March 2018, the board authorized a sublease of the property to the school system. So the school system, in lieu of rent, pays all of the operating costs. And they have used it, again, since 2018 for technology storage, originally associated with that bond rollout of technology in offices. So they really have become, as they've told us, important to their operations. That lease is expired now, but they have expressed interest in executing a new agreement should the board desire to acquire the facilities. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Were the pictures that you shared of the interior parts, were those current or back in the original long ago?
Those are hot off the press about 4 hours ago.
Wow.
So I just read in the paper that Ainsel Ranch is going to be the new technology center for the school system. Why would they need the warehouse there when they got all that property?
I'll be honest with you, that was a little bit of a surprise to me this morning. So our conversations with them prior to this have been that this is where their technology folks would be. But I've also sort of been saying in the background that the previous intent of these properties with economic development, you might want to think about some other options should a buyer come in for these properties. So I think that the wheels have been turning there on their part, and they sort of referenced that in their article. They knew their days were limited there or something to that effect in the paper. But it's not just technology that's there. I think some of their security operations are there, and there's a lot of just support functions that are in those facilities as well. So I'm not sure if this really changes their outlook on that. If the board were to acquire the facilities and say extend you another lease, if that changes some of that, or if they would move other operations in there. I'm not sure how that would affect that equation. It's certainly something I'd be happy to dig into, sir.
We have basically the first right of refusal on purchasing.
On these properties, you have an option that you can exercise prior to September, yes, sir.
Because the original intent was to front funds to WPDA for the WPDA development grant. I mean, that's really what the intent was, and so we.
The idea was to give them some funds to get rocking and rolling.
Obviously it was successful, and so now we're at the place where a fairly small amount of money gets kind of fee simple ownership of the property by the board, and so it would be.
Well, the thinking on wanting it was that the school district said they wanted to use it and that they're willing to. Now, are they paying anything for that lease, or one of these dollar leases?
No, it's a nominal lease, but they pick up all of the OpEx for the facility. So they're maintaining it. If there's a repair under that arrangement that's over $1,000, we're having some discussion about it that we would have responsibility with that. In a new agreement, if it were to be longer term and there'd be more commitment there, we'd probably look at that capital relationship. But for the most part, they're picking up utilities, they're picking up, if a light bulb goes out, they're changing it. It's a ground triple net type of lease.
Of course, they don't have any other money except your money to fix it. So,
but their allocation does not go up because of this building, or go down if they don't have it. In other words,
I think the
they're
building
making a decision that this is important out of our budget to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think our.
It's.
Can we get back to them and find out what their intent is of Ainsel Ranch and why they would need this building if they've got that? That's a very large space, that whole facility. If they don't need it, I don't know why we need it.
Well, and then we should sell it in that case.
And I think that was our intent.
The Whitaker Park development, I think there's some, I've talked to Bob Leake some, I think there's some current tenants that might have some interest in buying this space. I mean, I think that's possible. I'm not saying it'll happen, but I'm saying they might be. But I had this understanding that I was a little surprised with that, very surprised, because I thought this was a really important, that it had gone beyond this staging area for computers while they were doing all this stuff. I thought they had kind of moved, a good many people over there, but it doesn't look like there are too many people over there. I guess I just...
they may have just got out of the way of the picture. I think there are a fair amount of on-site staff there that weren't necessarily intended to be, as you referenced at the beginning of the lease, but it has grown to be over the last 4 years. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be great to have Daryl come and give us a little review about what's their future is and what they're planning, and if they're not, maybe if they're, and what kind of, maybe the terms of if they want to use it with terms of a new lease, maybe they should help pay this utility, the 100 grand, maybe they should just either split it or pay for it. I actually thought a lot of that separation, I thought a lot of the Whitaker Park, I thought this had already been done. I thought the electric meter stuff, because rentals, the big issue was mechanical. They had heating and water running everywhere. All that got taken apart. But I thought the Duke Power contracts from Whitaker Park to them was to accomplish all these meter separations. And I guess I had the understanding that was already done.
Yes, sir. I don't remember things as well as I used to, but 4 years ago, I remember doing this lease with the school system, and that was an issue. If you read it there, we do talk in their sublease how they are solely responsible for all utility costs, including hookup fees and metering and all that type of stuff. The intent was, I think, in lieu of rent, for the school system to help us make that separation. I'm not sure that connection, for whatever reason, happened with WPDA. So there actually may have been just some uncharged utilities over time just because of how interconnected that complex is. So now everybody's, sort of stepping back saying, okay, if the county's going to acquire this, ownership obviously needs to be separated off. So we're taking a good hard look at it now. The question is, do we go back to what we have? Do we upsize it? Because there are issues with pressure in that facility and the lines. But you're correct, that was the intent. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and so we're looking at it now.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Kirby. All right. Agenda item 20 agenda item 19, tax administration item, resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor collector in the amount of $2,036.92. You've also got a resolution, item 20, resolution appointing John T. Burgess as Forsyth County tax assessor collector, kind of a required resolution. And then you've got two reports, quarterly fuel surcharge report and the March 2022 human resources report. So, and that is it for the May 12th.
Can you not
meeting,
find
Mr.
just a
Chairman.
few more items?
Make some up if you want to.
Any further comments from the board before we adjourn? Not a one. Commissioner Kaplan. I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourn.